All right, we're reconvening. That's what I was going to do. I'm going to recognize Commissioner Presley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got two items. First thing is docket number 2021 UA31 Marshall Utility Services. This, by no fault of our own, didn't make it on the agenda. We weren't notified of a procedural issue in that case until late last week, so it missed the deadline. This is the expansion of the Marshall Utility Service, which is owned by Marshall County Industrial Development Association, which is a prospective but already very successful industrial park in northern Marshall County. There's some procedural problems in that case regarding some data requests from the staff. County officials have contacted me asking try to work those out. So this order would refer 2021 UA31 to me for hearing, and it's all situated in the Northern District. I move that we approve that referral.
Well, I'm a second. All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
And
opposed?
one last item, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
I know that today and I just want to revisit this, and I guess it's more important since Entergy is the company involved, but I know that there's been discussions in the last month regarding Entergy's resiliency ramp-up plan, and although I was prepared to make a motion today to approve that, I know there's some outstanding questions that need to be answered. I'd just like to admonish the company to please try to furnish to any of the commissioners or staff the answers to those questions. As I understand it, this program would reduce and take out the number of wooden transmission towers that are in the state. They would all be removed by the year 2032 rather than by the year 2049, which is going from 28 years to 11 years. As I think all of us know, these wooden towers are 7 to 8 times more susceptible to destruction from a storm, ice storm, tornado, hurricane, or others. And I think there have been incidents over the last couple of years where, in fact, the wooden structures have pulled down the steel and concrete structures because of the weight that they put on those. This seems to be a common sense plan to accelerate this deployment and to get us to the point in which I understand this is not a 100% insurance policy that would take care of every distribution pole in the state. But it is one less thing to worry about in the case of a catastrophic event, in which it seems to be, and we just heard the testimony of the staff, or the statement of the staff, Mississippi Power is seeing these type of events every 6 months. This would be an effort in which to do that. My understanding from the preliminary information that's been put out is this would be a 15 cent a month increase. I think anybody that's an Entergy customer would gladly be willing to put in a dime and a nickel to get every wooden pole that is 7 to 8 times more susceptible to damage and outages and extended outages out of the ground. So I don't know where the company stands on providing information, but if there are outstanding questions, I hope that we can try to expedite that. Again, this is not in the form of a motion. I was ready to do that, but I understand that we have some outstanding questions that honestly need to be answered. So if y'all would, please try to get that information in. This is not, I want to be clear about this plan because I'm the one that brought it up. This is not in any Disneyland idea of mine that we're going to guard against every outage, but it will check off one major component in the middle of a catastrophic event that we do not have to worry about, and will shorten it by 17 years and harden the grid. And I think these are the type of true brick and mortar results that consumers expect us to try to get done and accelerate and get fixed. So if the company could please work with the commissioner's offices, work with the staff, spend the time. I hate to interrupt your Christmas, but I know how much all of y'all make. You make plenty of money to work through Christmas. and to try to get this worked out, if you could, before we come back on January the 18th. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right. We're going to continue on now with docket number 2021 UA81, petition by Entergy Mississippi, LLC, for a certificate of public convenience and necessity, continue to make reliability improvements to modernize its transmission infrastructure in Franklin County. So we'll start with entries of appearance with the company.
Alexander Martin, Entergy, Mississippi.
This is Ross Hammonds for the commission.
Okay.
Emily Kruger for the staff.
Okay. Mr. Martin, do you have any witnesses?
Yes, sir. And if okay with you, I'd like to proceed with an opening statement.
You may proceed.
Okay. I'm Alexander Martin, and I represent Entergy Mississippi. Entergy Mississippi filed a petition for a certificate of public convenience and necessity in this docket on May 25th, 2021, requesting authorization from the commission to modernize its transmission facilities by expanding and upgrading EML's Franklin 500 kilovolt substation. This project is located in Franklin County, Mississippi, and is referred to in the petition as the proposed electrical facilities. Entergy Mississippi is proposing to build the proposed electrical facilities to maintain compliance with the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, or NERC, mandatory reliability standards, and to continue delivering reliable electric service to our customers in the southwestern region of our service territory. This morning, you'll hear from two witnesses. First, Chad Latner, Entergy Mississippi's manager for transmission planning. Mr. Latner will talk about the planning process and the specific need for this project to fulfill Entergy Mississippi's obligation to provide reliable service. Mr. Latner will explain how the proposed electrical facilities were selected as the best solution to improve reliability and to comply with the mandatory NERC reliability standards. Milton Watts offered pre-filed direct testimony in this proceeding, but has since retired. Chris Jones, who has taken over from Mr. Watts as project manager, is adopting Mr. Watts' testimony and will describe the project and discuss how the project will be constructed and how those costs will be managed. And Mr. Chairman, as a preliminary matter, I'd like to ask that several items be received into evidence.
Sure.
I've conferred with counsel for the commission and counsel for the staff, and they have advised that they do not have any objections. We've also provided the proposed exhibit list to the court reporter, who has the exhibits to mark and place into the record. First, I'm requesting that all filings related to Entergy Mississippi's Franklin CPCN petition, which includes the company's application, the testimony of Mr. Latner, and the testimony of Mr. Watts, which is being adopted by Mr. Jones, and exhibits all be marked as Composite Exhibit 1 and received into evidence.
Okay.
And I'm also asking that the data requests propounded by the staff and the company's responses to those data requests be marked as Composite Exhibit 2 and received into evidence.
Okay.
And Commissioners, I'd like to present both witnesses for them to provide summaries of their testimony, and then tender them as a panel for any questions you may have. So I guess at this point, we request that the witnesses be sworn in.
Yes. Ms. Court Reporter, will you swear the witness? Thank you. You may proceed.
We'll begin with Mr. Latner. Mr. Latner, can you please state your full name and position with Entergy?
Yes, my name is Chad Ladner. I'm manager of transmission planning for Entergy Services.
Mr. Latner, Entergy Mississippi filed a petition for a certificate of public convenience and necessity in this docket on May 25th, 2021. Are you aware of that petition?
Yes, I am.
And in support of that petition, you pre-filed written direct testimony. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And have you had the opportunity to review that petition and your pre-filed written testimony prior to today's hearing?
Yes, I have.
Now, I understand you have an update to your pre-filed testimony on page 5, line 3.
Yes, that's correct. My testimony inadvertently stated that the Franklin 500 kV substation would be reconfigured to a breaker-and-a-half bus scheme. While the scope of work described in the petition and testimony are accurate, I should have stated that the substation would be configured to an expanded ring bus scheme.
Okay.
What was that number in his statement?
Page 5, line 3.
Okay. Good.
Mr. Ladner, if I were to ask you today the same questions that are contained in your pre-filed direct testimony, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
So do you now adopt your pre-filed testimony as your testimony here today?
Yes, I do.
And you have one exhibit attached to your testimony, correct?
That's correct.
And was that exhibit to the testimony prepared by you or under your direct supervision?
Yes, it was.
And is that exhibit to your testimony accurate and correct?
Yes, sir.
Can you provide a summary of your testimony?
Yes, I can. My name is Chad Ladner. I'm employed by Entergy Services, LLC, as a manager in the Transmission Planning Department. I want to give a brief summary of why this project is needed for EML's customers in the Franklin County area and why the expansion and upgrade of the existing Franklin 500 kV substation is necessary and beneficial to address area reliability in the southwest area of EML service territory. The primary purpose of the proposed electrical facilities and overall project is to maintain compliance with the North American Electric Reliability Corporation, otherwise known as NERC, planning criteria. Modeling indicates that in the planning event category P23, internal breaker fault at the Franklin switchyard, thermal overloads could occur in the southwest area of EML's transmission system. The proposed electric facilities are needed to add breaker redundancy to address that modeling thermal overloading that could result in the simultaneous loss of the Franklin 500, Franklin to Bogalusa, and Franklin to McKnight 500 kV lines. Entergy's planning process seeks to ensure that existing and forecasted load in the EML service territory is reliably and adequately served by the transmission grid. As part of the process, Entergy Transmission Planning creates a model of the EML transmission network. Entergy identified potential transmission system limitations that manifest in contingency analysis performed using computer models representing summer, winter, and light load conditions. The proposed electric facilities were submitted as a solution to the identified transmission system limitations in the MTEP 19 planning process, and the proposal was evaluated by MISO's planning personnel. The proposed electric facilities were ultimately determined by the MISO planning personnel to provide the most effective alternative to remedy the identified limitations. As a result, this project was included in Appendix A of MTEP 19 and subsequently approved by the MISO Board of Directors in December of 2019, with the project planned to be in service by December of 2022. This project is the best solution to enhance reliability and support increasing load growth. It is necessary for Entergy Mississippi to continue to provide safe and reliable electric service in Franklin County. Without the construction of the proposed electric facilities, EML would not meet the applicable NERC reliability standards, and a system event could result in prolonged facility overloads that can negatively impact EML customers. For these reasons, we request the Commission approve our request to construct the facilities.
Thank you, Mr. Ladner. Mr. Jones, can you state your full name and job title?
Sure. My name is Chris Jones. I'm the Senior Manager of Energy Services Project Management and Construction Team here in Mississippi.
Mr. Jones, are you aware of the petition for a certificate of public convenience and necessity that Entergy Mississippi filed in this docket on May 25th, 2021?
Yes, I am.
And did you file direct testimony in this docket?
No, I did not.
Have you reviewed the pre-filed direct testimony of Mr. Milton Watts submitted in this proceeding in May 2021?
Yes, I have.
And are you adopting Mr. Watts' testimony today?
Yes, I am.
And why are you adopting Mr. Watts' testimony?
Mr. Watts retired in May of 2021, and I've assumed his role.
I understand that you have a revision on page 2, line 20, and page 3, line 8 of Mr. Watts' testimony.
Yes, that's correct. As Mr. Ladner mentioned, the pre-filed testimony inadvertently stated that the Franklin substation would be reconfigured to a 1.5-breaker bus scheme when in fact will be reconfiguring to an expanded ring bus scheme.
Do you have any updates to your testimony and Exhibit 5 regarding the company needing to acquire additional property to construct the proposed electrical facilities?
Yes, I do. Mr. Watts' pre-filed testimony stated that Entergy Mississippi would need to acquire 10 acres of property to complete the project, and the parcel of property proposed to be acquired was shown in Exhibit MTW-5. Since the filing, we've determined that the project can be completed within the existing property owned by Entergy Mississippi. Therefore, no additional property or rights of way will be required to complete the project.
Mr. Watts' testimony describes a competitive bidding process for the construction of the proposed electrical facilities. Can you provide us with additional detail regarding that process?
I can. So it's my understanding that Entergy's supply chain organization and team complies with all applicable Mississippi laws and statutes with respect to contracting construction services. As further detailed in response 1-1 to the staff's data request, Entergy Mississippi has several strategies it uses in procuring construction contractors, including competitive bidding. Entergy Mississippi utilized and is planning to utilize a competitive bidding process to select both the site and foundation contractors on this project. As further detailed in response 1-1, Energy Mississippi is also utilizing other strategies when justified, including the use of preferred suppliers that offer the specialized skills and experiences required to complete the project while having demonstrated that they are the lowest and best pricing in past competitive solicitations. The Franklin Substation is part of the 500 kV bulk electric system and is directly connected to Grand Gulf Nuclear Station in providing one of two off-site power sources. So inadvertent issues arriving during construction could result in transmission system instability and potentially require a down power of Grand Gulf Nuclear Station. Therefore, Energy Mississippi is working with a preferred supplier qualified to perform certain critical components of this work. When using a preferred supplier, my understanding is that our supply chain organization ensures that all pricing is aligned with past competitive solicitations.
Mr. Jones, do you now adopt Mr. Watts' pre-filed testimony as your testimony here today?
Yes, I do, subject to the mentioned revision and updates.
There were exhibits attached to Mr. Watts' pre-filed testimony. Have you had a chance to review those exhibits?
Yes, I have.
And are those exhibits correct?
They are subject to the mentioned update.
So do you now adopt those? Pre-filed testimony, those exhibits and testimony as your own today?
I do.
Mr. Jones, can you provide a summary of the testimony?
Sure. My name is Chris Jones. I'm employed by Energy Services, LLC, as a senior manager for project management and construction. I'm the project manager for the expansion of the Franklin Substation project, and I'm responsible for coordinating and managing all aspects of the design and construction of the substation and transmission line upgrades. This includes scheduling and managing the cost of the project. I assumed the role of project manager for this project after the retirement of Mr. Milton Watts. I've reviewed the pre-filed direct testimony of Mr. Watts submitted in this proceeding in May of 2021, and I'm adopting Mr. Watts' testimony today. The proposed electrical facilities will be built on property already owned by Energy Mississippi in Franklin County. The existing Franklin 500 substation will be reconfigured to an expanded ring bus scheme, and the company will add a new transmission structure near Franklin Substation, relocate the Franklin to McKnight 500 kV transmission line bay, and relocate the existing conductor to the new McKnight 500 kV line bay. The improvements at Franklin Substation will require upgrades to the relay protection and communication systems equipment located at the McKnight Substation in Louisiana. The McKnight Substation is located at the remote end of the Franklin to McKnight 500 kV line and contains remote end relaying and protection equipment affecting the Franklin Substation. The communications path between Energy Mississippi's Franklin Substation and Energy Louisiana's McKnight Substation in Louisiana will be upgraded to utilize the fiber optic network. Energy Louisiana will perform the upgrades at the McKnight Substation. After the filing of the CCN, Energy Mississippi determined that it did not need the approximately 10 acres of additional property that the filing said would be required or would be purchased for the Franklin Substation expansion. No additional property or right-of-way is required for the project. The total estimated cost of the proposed electrical facilities is $13.8 million. All labor, materials, property, and services rendered for the project will be supplied at reasonable prices. Work to be completed by contract labor will either be competitively bid or awarded to qualified contractors currently under contract with Energy Mississippi, subject to a competitive process. In accordance with the Mississippi Public Utilities Act and the Commission's Hire Mississippi rule, qualified local contractors will be given an opportunity to participate in the project. In summary, this project is necessary for the company to continue to provide reliable transmission service in Franklin County. Energy Mississippi therefore requests that the Commission grant the company a CCN to construct the project.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. With that, I tender the witnesses for questioning.
All right, is there any questions?
I have just one question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
For Mr. Emily Kruger with the Public Utility Staff. Mr. Jones, just a quick follow-up. You described the changes to Mr. White's testimony that you have adopted, subject to those changes that have occurred since this was filed with the Public Service Commission. And on page 3 of the direct testimony of Milton White's that was filed in this docket, there, starting in line 7, it's essentially a summary of the build-out, and I just want to confirm on the record what in that summary has changed. And number 1, you said that the description that the substation would be reconfigured to a breaker-and-a-half bus scheme. That has obviously changed. It's going to be reconfigured to an expanded ring bus scheme, correct?
That is correct.
Secondly, the direct testimony that was filed on this docket says that the company will purchase approximately 10 acres of property adjacent to the substation to accommodate the expansion. You confirmed that that has also changed, that the company will not be purchasing any additional acreage. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Number 3, the testimony says that a new structure near the substation will be built. That is still accurate.
Yeah, that is unchanged. That's correct.
And my other question is whether any of these changes that you've described to Mr. White's testimony that have occurred since this was filed, does any of that affect the projected cost of the overall project, which is $13.8 million? Is that still the figure for the projected cost of this whole project?
That's right. The $13.8 million aligns with the expanded ring bus scheme.
And I would just ask, Mr. Chairman, if the company could file an updated exhibit MTW-5. The one that was filed in this docket does show the old configuration with the addition of the 10 acres and then the originally planned addition to the substation. I would just request on behalf of the staff that they file an updated exhibit.
Mr. Martin?
Yes, we can do that.
Okay. All right, any further questions?
No further questions.
You got? All right, do we have a motion?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Mr. Martin, you're good to go. Thank you for your testimony. We appreciate it. And,
Thank you. Thank you, and we will be submitting that updated exhibit MTW-5.
Thank you.
yes, okay, good. If there's no other business before the commission, we'll stand adjourned.